Okay, now we're going to test out our division iterator, and we're going to do that in a program called test division. And test division just starts off by having a public constructor, and in this public constructor we're going to create a division object, this new division, and the division is going to be the sales division, and so that's going to be a division of the company we're supposed to be organizing. And so you have this division object, and it's a division corresponding to the sales department. Now you can add vice presidents. I'm going to add a vice president using the add method of the division object. First vice president to be added will be Ted, and then Bob, and then Carol, and then Alice. And so we're going to add various vice presidents, as you see here, using the division object's add method. So that's what we've done so far. We have created a test division program. In its constructor, we're going to create a new division called sales. We're going to install some 4 vice presidents inside the sales department, as you see here, using the add method. And there we are. We have Ted, Bob, Carol, and Alice. Okay, now that the vice presidents have been installed, we're going to get an iterator for the division object by using the iterator method. The iterator method returns an iterator, as you see there, and that iterator is a division iterator object, so it's stored in the iterator variable. Now we can use that iterator to iterate, that is, loop over the vice president's collection, and we're going to use a while loop for that purpose. We say while iterator.hasNext. As you recall, the hasNext method is going to return a value of true if there is another vice president waiting in the vice president collection. So we're going to say while iterator.hasNext. In other words, while this expression is true, we're going to keep looping. And so iterator.hasNext is going to return a value of true if there are further vice presidents to be processed in the vice president's collection. And in that case, you can use iterator.next, that's the next method of the iterator, to return the next vice president. And that vice president object, VP, is going to be stored in a vice president object variable, just called VP like that. And then to confirm that we actually have the vice president, we're going to use its print method to print out the vice president's information. As you recall, that printed out their name and their division. So this is right there. That is the loop that is central to our use of iterators. It's going to iterate using hasNext and iterate actually getting the next vice president object using the next method. Once you've got the next vice president, you're going to print out that vice president's information, and that's going to show that, in fact, we have been able to iterate over those 4 vice presidents. So you should see 4 vice presidents printed out by this loop, all of whom are in the sales department. It should be Ted, Bob, Carol, and Alice. So let's take a look now running this test division program. And there you have it. We're going to run the test division program using Java. And there, as you see, it worked as planned. There's Ted, Bob, Carol, and Alice all in the sales division. And in fact, our iterator has worked because we've been able to implement a hasNext and a next method, which lets you loop over the various vice presidents stored in the division. So not bad. We've been able to implement the iterator methods and gotten it to work with Java. Let's take one last look at how the iterator design pattern functions. You've got some client code, and you need to work with a complex collection of some kind, and the collection here may be stored in some very arcane manner, and you need a reasonable way of working with that collection. And so that's where the iterator design pattern comes into play. The iterator design pattern says that you can implement methods that let you work with that collection. The most modern way of doing that is to implement hasNext, next, and remove methods. That provides a consistent interface to let you move through the collection in a reliable way. hasNext, next, and remove are then used by the client code, and the actual underlying details of the collection don't matter, because as long as you have an iterator that implements those methods, you are good to go. So there you are. That's the iterator design pattern, and a very useful one indeed. And as you see, you can actually implement iterators that work with Java, that let Java actually handle your iterator as an iterator, and it fits in very well with working with Java. And all you've got to do is implement the iterator interface in Java, and you're all set.